Welcome, live pictures here from the Col de Sestriere with Stefano Garzelli leading ahead of the peloton by 6 minutes and 25 seconds. He's got the mountains classification jersey on his shoulders today. He was second in the competition. De Luca was first, and with 500 meters to go, he's going to try and secure that today because he's already been over the first climb of the day, the first category Monsentisio climb that came after 138.5 kilometers. This is the Kimakopi climb today. You can see it on your screens there. After 200 kilometers at Sestriere, this is the longest stage in the Giro d'Italia at 262 kilometers. And Garzelli, wearing the number 1 on his jersey, coming to us live off the back of the tennis. You've just about caught Garzelli going over the top here of Sestriere, the scene of so many battles in the Giro d'Italia. This stage was meant to be a mirror of the great escape of 192 kilometers of Fausto Coppi back in 1949, but they had to take a whole load of mountains out of it already. They lost the Maddalena, the Vars and Isoire first of all, and it's still 262 kilometers, and we've still got the Moncisio and of course over Sestriere and down towards the finish. There's one small climb after this at Martino, a third category climb, but not quite the centenary mirroring of Coppi's win 60 years ago, but even so, Garzelli had to put his mark on the centenary Giro d'Italia as he goes over the top of the climb at Sestriere and takes the points to put himself firmly in the lead of that mountains classification. Now, here are the two guys chasing at the moment. They are 2 minutes down. It's Giovanni Visconti again, and he's at the back there, and Andre Grifko. 2:38 is the gap for Grifko and Visconti, and then further 2 minutes back from there, there are another 4 riders chasing. Charlie Vergelius of Great Britain, and of course of the Silence Lotto team, Jose Serpa of Deque Giovanni, Felix Cardenas of Barlow World, and Dario Cioni, also the ISD team. Then it's about 6 minutes back to this, the pink jersey group. We are on the slopes of the Col de Sestriere. It's 262 kilometers, Sean, and this is one hell of a climb. It's such a long way up.
Yes, well, it's certainly one of the big days of the Giro, and you know, it's going to tire riders in the end as we move on. And you said about the final climb of the day, you know, it's a small climb, but it's still 6 kilometers, and you know, it's quite a percentage there. So I think when they have this distance in the legs, they're certainly going to suffer quite a bit. And you know, the action is on quite a bit. Garzelli's been out there for a long time, so certainly, you know, it's going to be one of the big days. It'll be interesting to see you know, what will happen on that final climb of the day. I think, yes, it's a launching pad certainly for some attacks.
I'm just wondering whether it is, in fact, whether we'd see people who are the real strong men who could win, not so much win, but maybe lose this Giro d'Italia today. I'm not quite so certain they would have done. If we'd have had those other 3 climbs in, the Maddalena, the Vars, and the Isoire, somebody I think would have taken the chance to hammer home if they're good legs against some of the big favourites. But we've got 2 great big climbs here, the Moncisio and Col de Sestriere we've been over today, but it's a very long run down towards the finish. A nasty little dig at the bottom. That's maybe where the attacks may come.
Yes, I think certainly, because the run down from Sestriere is, you know, it's around 44 kilometres, and you know, it's a run down where, you know, you start to you can get big legs when you start going up again. As we all know, you know, when you go downhill for a long time, the body cools down a bit. You lose the rhythm, and I think, you know, this final climb of the Martino, which is, you know, as I said, it's quite a severe climb. I would be certainly, you know, concerned about that one. I think we will see some attacks from riders, and of course then the descent, 11 kilometres to the finish, I think is a perfect launching pad for riders who can descend well. And you know, if you look at the riders in the bunch, I think Leiphammer is a very good descender. He's one who could make some ground here if there's a lot of action on that final climb of the day.
Well, we've come to this live a little bit later than scheduled, of course, because of the tennis running a bit longer, but you are with us live. You've just seen Stefano Garzelli go over the top of the Col de Sestriere and cement his lead in the mountains classification, because he was in second place this morning. He went over the first climb of the day at 138 kilometers, the Moncisio, to gain 10 points to draw level with Danilo Di Luca, who was in the lead of that competition, and he will now take that over, as is his right. Remember, if you're watching on the Eurosport iPlayer, we'll be on at least a half an hour after we finish today. You may have caught some of it earlier if you were using the Eurosport iPlayer as well. Sestriere, such an epic battle place, Sean. You could see the round tower in the background. That was there in the 1930s. This was actually built by well, a consortium backed by Agnelli, the great Fiat car magnate, and loved the cycling as well, and managed to bring the Giro d'Italia here. We've seen so many battles either in the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia into Sestriere. In fact, they come over, there's 3 roads up to the top here in Sestriere. You can come over 2 ways from the west, 1 from the east. We're coming from the east today, and it's the only way that's been used in the Giro d'Italia, or should I say there's no other way being used in the Tour de France except a westward approach for it. So the east is peculiar to the Giro d'Italia. These are our 4 chasing men, with Britain's Charlie Vegelius in this group here, Jose Serpa of Colombia, and Deco Giovanni in second place there. Then Dario Cioni. I suppose you could call both of those Brits with other heritage as well, because Vegelius, of course, his father was a Finnish show jumper, would you believe? And Dario Cioni, who's got grandparents, if I remember rightly, in Reading. So there we go. And Felix Cardenas, who, as far as I know, has no call on being British whatsoever, other than Barlow World is, I think, a British registered team. So there we go. These are your 4 men who are at about 5 minutes down from Stefano Garzelli. No lack of cojones from Garzelli. Sean, he's been on the attack whenever he feels he's got the legs.
Certainly, you know, going out like that on a big day with such a long stage and a long distance to go when he went to the attack, and he's certainly, you know, going for the mountains classic, but also the stage victory. As we see there, the 2 chasers, they went over at 3:58, and as we see here, they're going to be 5.5 minutes for these other 4 chasers. So certainly, you know, he's you know, out there with a big chance of taking the stage victory, depending on how he can, you know, do the descent. If he's not suffering too much from fatigue and starting to, you know, really tire, he could, you know, go down very well, as he does, and he could hold on to that lead of, you know, almost the 4 minutes, and then he could just certainly, you know, want to win the stage, and what, you know, a performance would be, because, as I said, a long stage, but he's been out there for a long, long time today.
The first man over the top here at Sestriere was those aficionados of the Giro, and of course those aficionados of the Tour de France will probably know this. It was Lucien Petit-Breton who went over the top at Sestriere, the pass here in 1911. I didn't know, but you didn't know that Lucien Petit-Breton was actually, although he was French, he was actually born and raised, he was raised in Argentina. So there we go. Only one man in the peloton I can think of as a regular Argentinian, and that's Juan Antonio Fletcher, who's actually born and raised in Argentina and now lives in Spain. So there we go. Over the top comes the peloton. Nobody's been too bothered about things today. Lots of attacks early on, lots of people trying to get away, and there was a group of about 4 or 5, including Great Britain's Ben Swift, who tried to have a go. 6 minutes 25 seconds is the gap between Garzelli and the pink jersey, the Maya Rosa, as they go over the top here in Sestriere. There are 4 chasing men on the descent. There was a group early on, as I say, with Britain's Ben Swift in it, but that was brought back fairly quickly. It was Garzelli was one of the riders who went across, I think, with Johan Schopp to that group, and eventually Garzelli got rid of all of them. So he has been out on his own since about kilometer 40 today. We are at kilometer 200 now. So there you are. Do the quick maths, 160 kilometers by yourself. That's no mean feat. I mean, anybody who's ridden anything like that distance will know how hard it is, but then to do it by yourself whilst breaking away from the peloton. There's the confirmation of the gaps, by the way. That's pretty good going already, and he's still got a great deal to go. 40 kilometers down until we get to the Martino climb, which is 3rd category climb, and the run-in, Sean, at the end. A little bit of a lumpy end as well.
Yes, certainly a very lumpy, and if we had a group here of, you know, to come together in the final, it would certainly be a perfect launch and pad for an attack because this final climb 6 kilometers, but then a number of kilometers from the finish we have a very steep climb also in cobbles, so it will certainly be majorly difficult. The interesting thing now to see if Visconti and Grifko can make it across because 3:57, 3:56 about that to our chasers, it's going to be difficult, I think, unless that Garzelli really slow down in the final kilometers.
Well, he may blow up, but at the moment he's firmly in that jersey. Welcome back, live pictures here with the peloton being controlled by the liquid gas squad, largely with LPR's help. They are 6 minutes, or they were 6 minutes and 23 seconds down on our leader on the road today, who is Stefano Garzelli. Has gone out on the attack after kilometre 40. He's now been 160k in the lead. He's got double points over the top of Sestriere, 30 to his name. That makes his total 45 in the mountains competition, and has overhauled Danilo Di Luca there. He had it on the jersey on his shoulders because Di Luca can't wear two, of course. He was second in that competition, so he's done a grand job today. These are our four chasing riders, or four of the chasing riders, shall we say. Behind Garzelli is Grifko and Visconti, but Grifko and Visconti losing time to Garzelli, who is a very good descender indeed, coming off the back of Sestriere. It's now down up to over 3.5 minutes, the gap on the 3:57, in fact, the gap on Visconti and Grifko. And then further back are the four riders, Vigelius, Serpa, Cardenas and Cioni. It looks as though they might be being caught, the Visconti-Grifko duo, but of course they've got Dario Cioni from ISD coming down as well. Cardenas and Serpa, both Colombians, and Charlie Vigelius of half-Finnish parentage, and British, racing for Ceylon Slaughter. These are our two men chasing. 3:45, the gap's come just down just a little bit. Well, as they're all on this long descent, and we'll keep you informed with the times. Coming up picture in picture, we got exclusive access at Eurosport today to the Astana team bus this morning for the briefing. There'll be a long version of this following feature in Planet Armstrong tonight, and we'll tee you up for that a little bit later. But while these descend down towards Pinerolo and the Martino climb, the third category climb just before the end of Pinerolo, we'll show you a little bit of exactly what happened in the team bus today. Johan Brunel talking about the plans and the tactics for this huge stage today that was meant to celebrate, or is celebrating, the victory of Fausto Coppi back in 1949. Now, 60 years since Coppi did 192 kilometers by himself from Cuneo to Pinerolo. So what do have Astana in mind for today?
Okay, boys, let's keep the meeting short because the stage is long. The climbs, we all know Sestriere. Who doesn't know Sestriere?
I've driven over it.
Well, anyway, it's not that difficult of a climb. It is after 200 kilometers. So
We go the same way that we went 10 years ago?
I think so. Yeah. So it's not.
It's pretty wide, no hairpins.
Yeah. No, it's 6-7% all the time. So
Good.
So I don't think today is going to be a race where there's going to be a lot of changes in GC. Maybe a break goes. I don't know what LPR is going to do. If they probably want to keep the jersey. You know, Di Luca could be a good stage for Di Luca with that little thing at the end. And maybe try to take some time on the guys. He thinks he can take time on Levi, on Basso. For Levi, the big next appointment is the time trial, and then after that, you know, depending on how he has gone, we may have a lot of work to do. So let's just think about that.
Let's hope.
If we see that there's, let's say, there's 2 Liquigas and a guy from LPR and 2 Lampres, and we have nobody, just 2 kilometers of full gas, and it saves us a whole day of work, you know.
They are.
Okay, boys. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hopefully we have an uneventful day, and we have a boring day in the car. That's always good to have a boring day in the car.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. ¿Dónde está mi radio?
Merci.
Well, there we go. Pretty much bang on the money, I'd have said, by Johan Brunel, who knows how to marshal his troops pretty well, isn't he? A break might go, might not be too many changes in the GC, except towards the end where there's a little climb and it might be good for De Luca. Is that what you'd be saying to the boys if you were the Astana director sportive today, Sean?
Yes, certainly, it certainly could be the case. And of course, you know, before the start, you would always look at the classements and you'd say break certainly is going to go. I would have expected maybe a number of riders to get away, although there were a lot of attacks where numbers of riders got out for a while, but nothing major. And I suppose, yes, when Garzelli went, he went very, very fast. You know, went at a hard point when everybody was probably on the limit a bit, and you know, that's why he pulled out an advantage, went on his own. Then nobody wanted to chase, and of course the race leader wasn't going to close him down because he's at 6:49 down in the general classement. So certainly, you know, he had plenty of room there to leave him go off and ride out. And you know, as you look at it now, I think certainly the forecast by Brunel was quite good, and maybe not a lot going to happen. But then you never know. If there's a lot of battle, if the battle goes on and groups trying to get away, we could have had a different day. And you know, on the first climb of the day there, it could have split a lot. But certainly, you know, Brunel was pretty much right in his tactic and his forecast.
It's a beautiful area running down from Sestriere. Now there we go. Official classification. Garzelli with 45 ahead of De Luca on 27 now. So that green jersey will remain on his shoulders tonight by rights. Well, is that purely his aim now, Sean? Or if he's got anything left in the tank, can he really dig hard in this last 40 kilometers? Because he's got about 6:30 on the peloton. He could bring himself right up well into the top 10 again.
Yes, certainly he's coming back into the general classement again. And the interesting thing, you know, the team of De Luca and the LPR guys, they have you know, done a very, very big ride today to control the situation, because you know, he's done a magnificent ride, and that advantage he has, he's going to get back into the general classement certainly if he can hold on you know, to some of that advantage that he's got right now. And then the other guys as well, Cardenas, of course, is up there in the general classement as well. You know, he's a danger one because he's over 3 minutes down, I think, in the general classement. Sean is not that awful long ways off either, and of course, you know, Visconti, he's a bit further down. Grifko, you know, 12 minutes. So there's some of those riders certainly maybe going to get back, depending on what happens in the bunch, and you know, if there's other teams who will really take it up now in the final, you know, and really push on the pace, because certainly the team of De Luca needs some manpower, some more help here.
Well, if anybody makes the gap across to Garzelli, we've got Grifko and Visconti chasing. Visconti an Italian, of course. We've got an Italian team, ISD, an Italian out ahead. We've got Cioni behind, again, Italian team. Vigelius, who's been based in Italy for a long time. Dequi Giovanni, an Italian team. We've got Barlow World based in Italy. I wonder if there's any alliance to be done with Garzelli, or are there jokers in the pack like Jose Serpa, for example, because Gilberto Simoni is their team man and he hasn't featured much at all so far. Any alliances to be done by Garzelli if they get across?
No, I don't think. I think everybody is going to go for the stage victory here. The interesting one is, of course, you have Visconti and Grifko who are chasing, and then also you have, you know, you have the riders who are, you know, the 4 men down, but they have another teammate there.
Welcome back. These are our second group on the road who are chasing at 4:20, back from Stefano Garzelli with Colombian Jose Serpa, winner of the Tour of Langkawi this year overall, his first really big victory outside of South America. Although he has won, of course, the stage at Genting Highlands before in the Tour of Langkawi. Just leading those guys there, Felix Cardenas, who's won stages in more than one Grand Tour in his career. Certainly in the past when riding for Kelme, that was the case. Also in the group, Dario Cioni, exceptionally good climber. Heritage in Reading, and Charlie Vigelius, who's moved from Liquigas to Ceylon's Lotto this year. And it's the first time we've seen Vigelius at all, Sean. Usually we see him at the front, driving along as a domestique for Liquigas or any other Italian team that he's been in. He's now gone to Belgium because they don't have that GC contender, so we've not really seen him.
No. Certainly no need for Vigelius to do any riding in the front, because the team he's riding with, they didn't have a need for that. And but the style of rider he is, doing a lot of grafting, a lot of domestic work on the front of the bunch. He's definitely going to go out in breakaways. And I think maybe today is probably one of the first days. Maybe he's calculating. He's saying, well, it's going to be really difficult to get out of this one because De Luca is controlling the race so well, and he wants to keep the jersey. And yes, it's certainly a way to do it, because you have to make a calculation. And if you look back at the last week, we've had been long breakaways, but certainly, a lot of them haven't succeeded really, and a lot of work for nothing for a lot of the breakaway groups and the riders. And certainly, in the 3-week tour, you always have to keep that in mind, because the last 2 weeks of the race, there's a lot of opportunities to get in breaks if you've got the good legs.
Garzelli in Finisterra now, which is about just over a third of the way down this descent off the back of Sestriere. Now, Sestriere has had such a wonderful history in the Giro d'Italia, and of course the Tour de France as well. You might remember a different era, of course, of cycling. Back to Claudio Chiappucci's 1992 win there, ahead of Miguel Indurain, who really had to fight a bit of a rearguard action. Mind you, he shed all his rivals at the same time in the Tour de France back in 1992, coming up to Sestriere. But it's been the scene of so many big battles. But this was actually this castle, all these defences across this mountain range were defending against a French attack many years ago. Many years ago, centuries ago, in fact. But there's not many French likely to breach the Italian onslaught today, of one sort or another. Not a single Frenchman having featured at all in any of the attacks today. In fact, Sean, not many French have featured in attacks whatsoever in the Giro d'Italia.
No, certainly not. It's a very poor performance. You look at the number of teams, of course. We have 2 French teams, but certainly, not getting into the breaks. We've seen Thomas Buchler there in a breakaway. I think there was another French rider from the AG2R team in the first week. But apart from that, nobody really putting up any great fight. And it's certainly, I think, it's disappointing. And we talked about, the AG2R Mondial. They're having a very poor season, and certainly, they're not getting it together, not pulling together in this one either. No,
in fact, it was the same guy who featured before, Guillaume Bonifant, who tried to go away today as well. He was in the break, did quite well actually. He's only 21. He's in a break, I think, at stage 3 or something like that, 3 or 4, and tried desperately to stay away with the break, but was the first man to be dropped actually, Bonifant, and then clawed his way back a little bit. These are our 2 chasing riders at the moment, Giovanni Visconti and Grifko. And trying to get across, André Grifko and Giovanni Visconti, but they're not making it at the moment. Behind them, at about another minute and a half, Charlie Vigelius of Ceylon's Lotto, Jose Serpa of Giovanni, Felix Cadenas of Barloworld, and Dario Cioni. And LPR and Liquigas beginning to increase the pressure at the front here. They've cut the gap down from about 550 to about 650 to about 6 now. When they say chasing pack, by the way, that is not this group here, De Luca's group, unless they've done some absolutely flying descending. This is the Mairosa group. I think it's this group they're referring to. Well, Visconti's not a bad descender, neither's Grifko, but Garzelli is obviously doing a fine job out the front, Sean.
Yes, well, he certainly is, and considering he's been out there for a long time, which is, you always have to remember, when you're starting to get tired, people think you can make the descent very well, but it's not the situation. You have to be, very alert and very fresh to make a good descent, because when you're tiring, that's the time you descend a little bit less. Your confidence is not as good because you're feeling the effects of fatigue, but certainly Garzelli is working quite well at it. And the interesting thing now, back in the bunch, as you said, it's close to 6 minutes for the bunch all the time. They have to be careful here. Cardenas, of course, at a little over 3 minutes. He's in the danger man. in the general classement, and the liquid gas team and also LPR, they have to keep on riding now, because he's a danger man. The other thing is the ISD team with Cioni, they're doing a great job today, because Visconti, Grifko out in front, and Cioni, he's not that far off in the general at 5:17. It would be a situation, do you start thinking and maybe get together, but if they wait for that group, our two chasers, Visconti and Grifko, if they wait for their teammate Cioni, I think it wouldn't have worked, and I think is the best decision. They have to keep going on their own, unfortunately, because Cardenas is a danger man, and I think if they had joined together much earlier in this stage, well then I think there would have been a reaction quite a bit earlier out of the bunch as well from the teams who have general classement ideas.
No problem with Charlie Viguelis. He's 26 minutes down. I'm just wondering, Sean, what do you think? Jose Serpa is a Colombian, or else he's in Gilberto Simone's team, but he's a Colombian, and we've got Felix Cardenas in their group. A little bit of work to be done there, maybe?
Well, I think they all have big interest here, of course. When you look at that general classement, Serpa also at 6:34 in the general, so he has a lot to gain here, and a perfect situation for him to move up in the general classement. So they are going to really ride here, but again, Visconti and Grifko are really doing a good job, because two men out front, they're working very well to hold off this chasing group, because you can be sure, Cardenas and Serpa, they are not hanging about, and Wegelis also, I think he has interest to ride, so everybody is fighting for their position here today.
We're going to take a short commercial break then, with Garzelli being tracked down by these two guys. Welcome back to our live pictures here. They're on the descent of from the Sestriere through Fenestrel down towards the bottom of the valley, and it goes directly into the last climb of the day, or the last categorized climb of the day, the Pramatino, which is a third category climb, coming with about 11 kilometers to go from the end, or at least the top is 11 kilometers to go. It's about a 6-kilometer climb. 3 minutes and 15 seconds is the gap back to the chasing group, about 6 minutes to the peloton from Stefano Garzelli, who went at 40 kilometers today. He joined a small group, breakaway group, and then just burnt them off. Garzelli, incidentally, is 2 kilometers ahead now, 33 kilometers to go for Stefano Garzelli, who has done exactly what he wanted to do today, or exactly what he needed to do today, to cement his lead in the mountains classification. He's got two riders chasing him, Andre Grifko and Giovanni Visconti on the right-hand side of your screen, and Garzelli on the left-hand side of your screen, obviously. And behind that, there are another 4 men who you can see now. There are the gaps. Well, the gap has come right down now, Sean, with these 4 men not making an awful lot of impression. They're likely to be taken back fairly shortly.
Yes.
Or is that a gap between those and the Maya Rosa?
No, certainly the gap is coming down to these 4, but as we see, the two chasers, 1:45, they're certainly making a little bit of time on Garzelli, and that was the question, how well would he descend? And I think it tells us that he is starting to tire, as we hear over race radio, coming down a little more, 1:30 now. So certainly, these are making a good descent here. And there's sections also in it where, look, we can see at the moment it kicks up a bit, and you have to push on. Although it is going downhill, certainly you need to put in a big effort here. And I think that's where the advantage of Visconti and Grifko, they have the 2 men. So when you share a bit, as you know, it always helps a little bit of recovery time, where Garzelli hasn't got that, and he hasn't got it all day, because he's been out there from 40 kilometers, although he was with Sunrise in the beginning. He's done a lot of riding into the wind on his own, and certainly it's starting to pay now. I think he's fatigue is coming in, and it looks like he could get pulled in before we get to the final climb of the day.
He certainly could, and that's where the fireworks will start between people in the hunt for the pink jersey, the Maya Rosa. Well, this man's done what he needs to do with 30 kilometers to go, but that's not what it looked like this morning. It's a very tough stage at Stefano this morning. 3 difficult hills. Let's hope I've recovered from during the rest day, and I can do a bit of performance today.
Sicuramente da lontano non credo.
Attacking? No, I'm sure from that I'm not going to do that. I'll try and battle for a stage towards the end. I'll try and be amongst the best if I finally manage to win a stage, but not from a long way out, he said. A nice bit of sandbagging, Stefano, I would suggest. Mind you, I mean, it's a bit of a leading question because you'd have thought that would have been one of the obvious tactics that you'd have thought of in the first place. Get out there and get the mountains points.
Yes, well, it would be certainly something for him because he's in the mountain classement there, and certainly a day to do that. But also you have to wait and see what happened during the stage and who goes in the attack. But I certainly think he wasn't telling the whole truth there, let's say. And I'd not blame him because the camera crew go around before the start and they go to Garzelli and then they go on to somebody else and they say, well, Garzelli said he's going to attack today, and immediately it gets around in the bunch and your plan is thrown out the window. So certainly, you cannot start giving your tactic out there before the start. That was probably maybe 15-20 minutes before the start. Certainly, I would think he would have ideas if the opportunity arises. And it was a day of a lot of attacking in the beginning. So certainly, for Garzelli, he had that advantage as well. Being a long ways down the general classement, he was going to be allowed to get away in an early break because of the other favourites. I think they were going to allow him to do that, and it's worked out magnificently well for him.
Yep, 35 years of age now. I'm probably feeling every one of them by the end of today, I would imagine. Here's Stefano Garzelli. And his big year. Back in 2000 now, he came onto the scene pretty, well, I mean, he started to be a professional way back in 1996, but he had a really good year in 2000, including the overall win in the Giro d'Italia. But it's been a long, long road since then. It's amazing how many, well, that's the four men, Cioni, Cardenas, Serpa and Vegelius have been pulled back in. But it's terrible what a weight of expectation you get on your shoulders, especially from the Italian tifosi, isn't it, Sean? If you win the Maya Rosa, you win the Giro d'Italia, then the next year they expect you to do the same, and the year after that they expect you to do the same, and it never really happened for Garzelli, although he's battled bravely for the last 9 years.
Yes, well, of course, if you're a winner, an ex-winner, and you are a leader on the team, which Garzelli is, of the Aqua and Saponi team, he's the leader, and he's the man that expects to do something in the general classement, and he's, fighting up there. Although, the first big mountain stage, he lost that climb, but he's fighting back very well. He's certainly, really, going well. But the problem is, from today to recover, he's going to pay for this effort, whatever happens here in the end. But he could move back in the general classement depending on how he can finish out this stage. It's always thing, if you're leader of a team, you're certainly going to be under pressure, and your home race, in an Italian race, you're going to be under pressure from the tifosi.
Well, you thought when these two come across to him, they've got just over a minute between themselves and Stefano Garzelli, that he'll be pretty pleased if he can just hang in there. And they're going to go for the stage win today. The ISG boys, Visconti and Grifko. 107 is the latest. I think it's a little under that now, actually, between those two and Garzelli. That is what we see on the graphics, but I've got a feeling they're all not that far off catching his back wheel here. And Garzelli will see them come up, and he'll just sit on their wheel and go, that's not a bad place to be at the moment. We're going to take a short commercial break. I wouldn't be surprised if when you come back there are 3 people at the front here and not just Stefano. Stefano Garzelli, literally, as we come back on air, joined by Giovanni Visconti and Andre Grifko, and immediately gets into the wheel. And this, well, this may well help Garzelli now. Sean, he's got everything to play for now. He's got 2 guys out in front who are a little bit fresher than he is, who want to work together for the stage victory, and he may just well let them have it.
Well, I think that's about all he can do, follow, and if he can do that, it'll be, difficult, because I think he's tiring big time. The results of that descent, losing time rapidly to the 2 chasers. He's just going to try and hang in there and stay with them, but the bunch, of course, is coming up very quickly. I think it was just over 2.5 minutes back to the bunch. so everybody is starting to pay for the big effort here. And of course, once again, we see the big advantage where it was, 5-6 minutes. We were saying these guys are going to hold on out there. Even the 4 chasers, I thought that they would hold on and go on to the end of the stage. But it's really come down quickly, and it's telling the long day out there for a long number of kilometres. Certainly, everybody is paying the price. And the interesting thing now, if the bunch really keeps going, we're out of the situation where the general classman, Cardenas, who was just a little over 3 minutes, Serpa at 6.5 minutes, they've been taken back. Will the bunch slow down a bit, or will they keep going here? We've seen the Liquigas taking it up also, so they might be thinking of the stage victory with maybe Basso, Pelazzotti, and if that is the case, I think we could see the 3 leaders out in front being pulled back in the final kilometres.
Well, I know he's a former winner, Sean, Stefano Garzelli, but is he really dangerous enough to have to reel in?
Well, the problem being, of course, the 6:49 he was down in the general classement. He was at a moment where he looked dangerous, but I don't think that was the big concern of De Luca, Basso, all the other big favourites. It was the guys who were up there. Cardenas, for example, who was a very good climber. Serpa, who could come back into the general classement a bit as well. You cannot allow that. You're allowing too many danger men in the general classement who you eliminated a number of days ago. So because of a number of reasons, I think that's why the reaction of the bunch, and certainly did not help Garzelli in the situation with that 4 chasers who are danger men in the general classement.
So our 3 men at the front now: Giovanni Visconti, Andre Grifko, and Stefano Garzelli, who spent the best part of 170 kilometers by himself. Now joined by the 2 men from the Italian ISD team, 1 Italian, 1 Ukrainian, with the 2000 Giro d'Italia winner in the middle, sandwiched in the middle of those 2 now. There is the current leader, Danilo Di Luca, a former winner himself a couple of years ago. There he is in the pink, just behind the ever-present Gabriele Bossisio. Jose Luis Rubiera coming up towards the front, always by the side of that man there, Lance Armstrong. Ivan Basso is just behind him. Damiano Cunego on the left-hand side. And it was at one time Alessandro Speziolezzi doing the work on the front for LPR. He's moved over very briefly to let another teammate through. But this stage today, maybe not quite exactly the way they originally planned it. The Madeleine Vars and Isoire not featuring in today's stage, a mammoth 262 kilometers. It was meant to be a mirror image of the stage won by Fausto Coppi, the greatest of all Italian cyclists, and some say, well, David Duffield will say, the greatest cyclist of all time, possibly. In 1949, but unfortunately they took the first 3 out because they deemed there was a risk of landslides. They also said that the radio frequencies between Italy and France clashed, which does strike me as bizarre. If you can sort it out for the Tour de France, I'm not sure why you can't sort it out for the Tour of Italy if you use Sestriere and the Isoire and so on. So, but there we go. Very strange. But anyway, it is still an homage to Fausto Coppi. I know David Duffield said, yes, he is the greatest cyclist of all time. Why not Merckx, I hear you say? Well, David would argue, as with many other people, that Fausto Coppi's career was interrupted by the war, as was Gino Bartali's as well, his great rival. So that is what today's stage was meant to mirror. 192 kilometers was the breakaway for Fausto Coppi back in 1949. In fact, he came in 11 minutes ahead of his rivals, which is something that Stefano Garzelli is not going to do today. Neither are the other 2 with him. But so many battles across this terrain in both in the Giro d'Italia and in the Tour de France. And of course, Coppi not only won here in 49 over Sestriere, but he also won the first time the Tour de France came to Sestriere in 1952 as well. So that's why he looms so large in this particular environment. There's another interesting thing I read the other day as well, that Claudio Chiappucci, who won the 92 stage in the Tour de France up to Sestriere, having been away for God knows how long by himself, and putting Indurain under real pressure, came within 40-odd seconds of taking a yellow jersey from Miguel Indurain in the Tour de France on that day. The Italian Chiappucci winning alone in Sestriere. His father, Chiappucci Sr., had been a massive cycling fan and been interned in the same prisoner of war camp as Fausto Coppi, and used to give some of his food to Coppi every night because he was such a massive cycling fan. And Coppi was, of course, one of the darlings of the Italian tifosi. So it's an interesting little link. Chiappucci, as far as I recall, is still riding a lot of sportives or Grand Fondos, as they say. And not one of yours, is it, Sean, that one?
No, it's too small.
Too small, yep. Too small for one of Sean's donkeys. Letting off the lead there, that's not particularly good.
It's not a thoroughbred.
You talking about Andre Grifko or the donkey? Here we go. Grifko at the front, Visconti at the back, and Garzelli in the middle. I'd be pleased to have these two guys along for company, I would think.
Yes, well, he certainly will, because, you know, although he's, you know, doing a little bit of work there, he seems to be moving up to the front. That little bit of recovery time, you know, that 15-20 seconds in the wheel, it's amazing the difference it makes, and you can, you know, just recover that little bit and then take the front. So certainly it's needed, but as we see, you know, the teams here riding on the front. And the other thing is, Luke, is he interested in this stage? I think very possibly, because when you look at the descent of that final climb, 11 kilometres on the top of that final kick up, and very, very technical. And Luca might be thinking, well, I can take some time out of the other general classement guys here.
It's pretty decent on the way down as well, in terms of technical difficulty. I find it very interesting, Sean, that we've hardly seen any of the Cervelo guys at all in breakaways, and I'm not sure that they can't put people up there. They're a fairly young team. Diagnan Gerrans has got plenty of experience. Vladimir Gustav's got a lot of experience. Ted King's pretty young, but Konovalovas has been around for a little bit. Lloyd, of course, coming back from a virus, but I spoke to him yesterday. He said he's feeling really good now, which is good. Serge Pauls, who's the only man we've seen in a breakaway. I'm very surprised that even today, for example, we didn't see somebody up there. Are they really all waiting for Sastre to do something this week?
Well, I think certainly there's some of them who is going to be looking around Sastre, but if I was director of Sportive, I certainly wouldn't have them all waiting around Sastre. You know, I'd designate maybe 2 men to stay with Sastre, and then the rest I'd say, look guys, you know, you have a free hand here, let's try and get in the breaks. And Powers was the only one who we see in the breaks. Diagnan, of course, in the beginning he was riding quite well, but you know, started to suffer then on the first mountain stop finishes, and he's a rider as well. I think he's very much capable of getting into the breaks, and I'm surprised that we're not seeing more, because certainly I think they're riding well enough. I'd be surprised if they're not, but maybe they're waiting for a little bit more until the race settled down, and when the Luke maybe is out of the general classement, if that ever happens in this race, because it looks, you know, it looks quite good from at the moment, but maybe they're saying, well, you know, it's just too risky yet, because the Luke is controlling this race. It's going to be so hard for breaks to succeed, and you know, the last week there'll be a lot of opportunities. Maybe that is their tactic.
We've not seen other teams in the breaks, not just Cervelo, of course. I mean, Cervelo have got an outside favourite hit in Carlos Sastre, and I guess you could say the same thing for Rabobank. They've got an outside favourite in Denis Menchov, who looked extremely good on stage 5. It's jobless Italians protesting about the state of the Italian economy and the recession and the fact they haven't got any jobs at the moment. So I think that's what they're doing at the side of the road there. But other teams, we haven't seen anybody really in the break. Katusha, Milram, not seen anybody from Milram really in a break. I've not seen anybody from Silon Slotto except for Charlie Vigelius today. Are they just all happy to sit there and wait?
Well, that is the question. You know, it's just impossible to know. Are they just suffering and not being able to get into the breaks? I think there's a lot of action in the earlier part of the stage where there's attack after attack. I think, you know, some of them are probably suffering, and some are working on the tactic as we wait a little bit of time. But of course, the Italian teams, if you look at today, like the Italian teams that are up there, they're all Italian teams except for Lorto Wegelus. The rest are all Italian, so you know, they're really racing, and it's amazing the motivation they have in their home country and their home national too.
This is the Pramatino climb. Starting now, it's a third categorized climb, but a lot stiffer than perhaps you might think. Two former national champions here. Look on the sleeves of Giovanni Visconti and Stefano Garzelli, the Italian bands, denoting that they are former national champions, very experienced bike riders. This is going to be a stiff test, I think, for Garzelli. If they can stay, are they going to try and keep him with them here? Will they still want to, they're 154, they still want Garzelli to help out, or is it likely that he's just going to have to sit there and deal at his own pace?
Well, I think certainly he's going to try and sit there, and you know, they need him from now on. Of course, you know that he's not going to be a great help, and I think we could see the ISD riders trying to go in the attack. But you know, the advantage advantage is the thing. It's just around the 2 minutes, a little bit under, and they're certainly, having no time to start playing about. Certainly, they're just going to have to ride, this one, give it 100%, because when we get to the top, as I said, 11 kilometres downhill, there's a little kick up, about 3 kilometres to the finish, but a very, very short one, about 350, 400 metres. And the question is now, is Garzelli, really up to it? Has he got enough energy left to hang in here? But the other ones also, they've had a big day. They've been chasing a long time, so I think we could see them just hanging in together. But it'll be interesting because 2 men from the ISD team, they have to try and get the stage victory here.
Yep, I think they do. It's a very talented team, actually. It came out of Italy's best amateur team, and I think they called Finale, if I remember correctly, but I'm not quite certain about that. But ISD, Luca Cinto is the director sportif, but you look at the rundown of the riders they've got here, they should be able to pull something out of the bag, and Garzelli's still trying to put as much pace as he can into it. Giovanni Visconti, Oscar Gatto, Dario Cioni, Ian Stannard, Andrei Grifko, Dmitry Grabowski, Bartosz Ruski, Leonardo Scarzelli, and the only person who's out at the moment is Ruslan Podgorny, who's disappeared from the ISD lineup. But they are very strong indeed, playing on that sort of mix of Italian and Eastern European that we've had for quite a while. Now look, this is Liquigas taking up the pace on the front. Dennis Menchov just sitting in there behind, as you can see, sitting behind Pelazzotti. Leipheimer right behind Menchov, just keeping the pace pretty high once again. Pelazzotti still at the back here. I'm not sure that they don't think Pelazzotti is still the man for this GC. To Liquigas, he's always in the protected position. Michael Rogers sitting behind Marzio Bruzigin. The man in the middle from K Stepani is Joaquim Rodriguez. A very, very punchy climber indeed. This sort of hill would suit him. Basso takes up the pacemaking on the front. How fierce is he going to make it? Which is the question. Incidentally, the football ground that we showed pictures of just now was the one that Juve use for summer training. And here's a bit of useless information about Juve. I think it is Juve, isn't it? They're playing black and white stripes. One of the teams, anyway, used to have all their kit from Notts County, I seem to remember, years and years ago. That's how they started.
And we've just seen Grifko in trouble, which is...
I was surprised about that.
Surprised, yes, but of course they have made a big effort as well, the two of them. Visconti, they have made a big effort here to get back to Garzelli, and Garzelli is, still pretty strong, and it'll be interesting now to see, can they really keep it going here, because that 2-minute advantage, it's certainly going to be a difficult one, because the Liquigas with Basso on the front, they're really setting the pace immediately when they turn that left-hander just to go up the final climb of the day. It's going to be a real test for them in energy, how much they have left here in the tank, really.
Yeah. Visconti, who seems to be working fairly hard. He's been very, very active right the way through the Giro d'Italia. He's managed to be in 3 or 4 breaks. They haven't always succeeded, but maybe this is the one that might. But it's 2 minutes back down to the Maya Rosa and Danilo Di Luca, with once again Sylvester Schmidt putting the pressure on at the front. This is exactly what we saw the other day. Now, when they turn up the gas again and Basso turns up the gas, will Pelazzotti go out the back door? Who knows? Are they trying to put Di Luca under pressure, Sean, because they know it's a technical run-in and he's got that sort of classics ability?
Well, I think certainly, they are trying to put a lot of the big favourites under pressure, and of course Liquigas maybe, the team for in the mountains and this sort of climb before the finish, with Schmidt there again, really making a very, very strong pace. We see Basso just taking it up for a moment, but he was only waiting for some of the other teammates to appear, and the interesting thing, will he take it up again when the other rider, Schmidt, is finished here on the front? And that's the interesting one. I think he might, but it's difficult to know. Is he giving 100% of it? Is he just making the pace that way he can stay in front and not get crushed out, not get pushed out in the front of the bunch, because that is a problem maybe for Basso. His bike handling wouldn't be as great maybe as a De Luca, who can sit in there in 4th or 5th position and just get full drafting, although on the climb it's not major, but still it does help.
Well, there's 35 seconds now is the gap between Grifko and these two boys, as Grifko has tailed off the back. Surprising, but there we go. This peloton will be coming up to catch Grifko at some point. I think you're right about De Luca and his bike handling skills, and Basso and his bike handling skills more to the point. Basso, remember, has not been in competition for 2 years, and that takes the edge off as well.
Yes, it certainly does. Your confidence and, you know, not being in a group, and, you know, it's really contested here. Positions before you get to the final climb, it would have been really contested there to stay up in the top 15, 20 of this leading group. So certainly, you know, Basso would be a little bit more under pressure than De Luca, and he's a very good bike handler, and his positioning in the group would be a little bit better than Basso, certainly.
Sylvester Schmidt still pushing hard on the front. I don't think he is just setting pace, you know, he's working pretty hard actually, Sylvester Schmidt. He's a terrific climber, has been for a long time. There is Ondrej Grifko just about to be caught by Schmidt, with Basso in second spot, then Pelazzotti, then the pink jersey of Danilo Di Luca, then Michael Rogers, Leipheimer, Rodriguez, Armstrong, then Simoni from Dequa Giovanni, and just behind Simoni, Menchov in the Rabobank colours. And then Carlos Sastre, that little hunched figure. Vladimir Gustov sitting on the wheel of Carlos Sastre. There is Simoni.
So there, also there. And this group is about, what, 40 riders. We can see a big, you know, a big split in the main bunch, and it's certainly, you know, blown to pieces. And a group behind there chasing. We just see a moment ago from the overhead shot. Another group maybe of 30, 40 riders who've just lost contact a little bit from the group of De Luca here.
51 is David Arroyo, climbing so well again this year. He's got teammate Joaquin Rodriguez just behind. He slipped off a little bit, but Arroyo doing well. Garzelli doing a fierce job. He wants this win, Sean. He wants to win, and he's got good bike handling skills as well. He knows if he gets over here with enough an advantage, then he may well be able to descend pretty quickly. But I think the peloton are getting closer and closer all the time.
Yes, I certainly think, and we got a time check there flashed up a number of moments ago. I think maybe it's back to the second part of the bunch, the split we're talking about, because the bunch is the group of De Luca is getting very close here, and it's going to be, you know, really difficult for them to hold on. And this climb, you know, it goes up for just around the 6 kilometers, and we can see Schmidt really, you know, setting a very hot pace here. And up front, as you said, Garzelli is working quite well, and that will give him confidence, because he knows that, you know, he still have the feeling, you still have something left in the tank, and you have to just keep going for it here and try to get over the final climb. And if you can do that, well, if you have, you know, 40-50 seconds at the top, you could just hold on, but it's looking more and more doubtful.
Visconti's the one who needs to come through and do a little bit more work if these two are going to stay away. He's just sitting there at the moment, not doing an awful lot.
Well, yes.
Or maybe he can't do an awful lot.
It depends on how the body and how the legs are feeling, and you know, if Garzelli is making a pace which you're just a little bit uncomfortable with, a little bit too fast for you, there's nothing more you can do. Just stay in his wheel and try, you know, hang in there.
About 30 riders this group is now, by the look of it. There is Armstrong climbing well, sitting behind Leipheimer, who is sitting behind Michael Rogers. Let's run down this group then. It's Schmidt who's setting that fierce pace and has them all strung out here, with Basso behind, looking good at the moment. Pelazzotti with the jersey right down to the bottom of the chest, looks across, now takes up the pacemaking, looks across to Schmidt and Basso. Now, is he going to do? He's going to do a reverse of exactly what happened the other day, as Schmidt has done his job. Now Pelazzotti takes it up. It was Basso who put the pressure on the other day, and it was Pelazzotti who went out the back door. Basso seems to be able to stick with that pace, but there was a moment there, Sean, where I think he looked across at him and went, you know what, it's my turn to do it now. I'm not going to wait for you. If you could stay on my back wheel, all well and good.
Well, I think certainly they're trying to just test De Luca, and you know, Pelazzotti there just opened the pace a little bit. Basso just hesitated for a moment, what do we do here? And you know, he has to follow, because he cannot leave De Luca get away with Pelazzotti. But certainly, you know, I think it's, you know, the tactic they're going to use, because with two men from the Liquid Gas team, you know, very good contenders for the general classement, we could see there immediately they are just testing the other big favourites, and certainly testing De Luca.
And here we are, it's Franco Pelazzotti who's putting the pressure on, and De Luca is dropped by Franco Pelazzotti. Pelazzotti, 9th overall today at 1:35. It could be significant for him if he can get over the top of this first. But De Luca, he knows, could descend really well. He's got about 20 bike lengths from that group. Also in the group, there's Pelazzotti right at the back of our shot there. He's coming up towards Garzelli and Visconti. Garzelli beginning to grind his way up this climb. Pelazzotti keeps looking over his shoulder. It's hammer down time because they can play that double whammy. They've got Pelazzotti in the best position possible. Basso is just above him in the general classification. De Luca's got to look at Basso. If Basso goes, then De Luca's got to go because he's more of a threat. But then Pelazzotti goes up the road. He's got to respond to it. Juan Maurizio Soler in this group. Right at the back, Tadej Valjevets just hanging in there for AG2R. Be great if he could get a good result today, and he needs something, don't they? Pelazzotti comes past Garzelli, just keeps going. He's got to keep going at his own pace. If Garzelli can get on the back wheel, that's fine. If not, Pelazzotti's not going to wait around. How big a gap has he got? This is a dangerous situation for De Luca.
Well, I think, yes, De Luca, he has a little bit, you know, of an advantage there. 135 back to Pelazzotti on the general classement, and you know, he's not going to panic here, De Luca. First of all, Pelazzotti, there's other riders who's going to maybe, you know, go in the attack, so you use that tactic and allow Pelazzotti to get that 15-20 seconds advantage and leave him hang out there, and hopefully that there will be some of the other big favourites who will go in the attack. So if you try and control the legs of Pelazzotti, you could pay by the bigger favourites, like you have Leipheimer, for example, who's up there. Menchoff, also a danger one. So as your race leader, you have to always remember the other ones who are breathing down your neck in the general classement.
Exactly, that's what makes it so good for Pelazzotti, isn't it? He can go, and other people have then got to. De Luca's got to look at the other people. Now Soler is taking it up now. Well, that places the hands of De Luca, because De Luca then follow that pace, and if Soler tries to get across, then it's good for De Luca. Now he's going to go. He's decided enough's enough. I don't think the others are going to try and follow me. And away he goes. Who can get on the wheel? Soler is fighting to get there. I think he can at the moment. Basso maybe has him in his sights. Oh, awesomely smooth by Levi Leipheimer. He's not managing to shed them. In neither Basso or Leipheimer look to be worried. Neither Menchoff either. Pelazzotti is up the road with Garzelli. Fantastic riding by Garzelli, because he's got back onto the wheel of Franco Pelazzotti. This is a bit further down the hill, and you could see for the first time Chris Horner is in trouble. Chris Horner, who's done so much work, is fighting to hang on in there. That's Vladimir Gustov just in his wheel from Cervelo. Pelazzotti, is this going again? Really digging in hard, and I think finally Garzelli is just blown to bits. This is the steepest part of the climb. It gets to about 12% towards the top for just a short section, and then plunges down the other side. It's very narrow, very winding. It's going to be quite difficult for tired legs to deal with. Look at this gradient now. This is where Pelazzotti stands on the pedals, goes away. Garzelli goes, well, you know, thanks very much, Franco, but I can't stay with you. And the peloton's not far behind. He's just... Great day for Stefano Garzelli in the saddle and in the lead of the race, but it's over for him.
Yes, certainly. Just, you know, the long kilometres out in front is paying. He's paying the price, Garzelli, for that, and Pelazzotti coming out of the bunch, you know, you're going to be that much fresher naturally, and certainly Garzelli, you know, just paying the price there. And we can see just at the back here the main bunch, the front of it, with De Luca. You know, Pelazzotti is certainly not that far ahead here, so it's going to be a very, very spectacular and a very hotly contested descent.
This is Damiano Cunego, the Little Prince. Yes, indeed, yeah. As he recalled, 2004 winner of the Giro d'Italia aboard a Cannondale for Seiko.
Oh,
Lance fighting to hang in there, fighting to hang on, but he's climbing reasonably well, Sean. He's been hanging with this group pretty well at the moment.
Yes, he certainly is, and I think, you know, considering the difficult first week, mountaintop finishes, very long stages, very muchly contested the first week, he's, you know, recovering quite well, because, you know, at the end of the first week, the recovery is so important, and considering what he's been doing racing-wise, and, you know, the accident, broken collarbone over 5 weeks ago, he's defending pretty well.
Look at the dark horses in here, though, that we've talked about. Denis Menchoff, Carlos Sastre, David Arroyo here. Oh, Garzelli's hanging in there, really hanging in hard, and it's being left to Basso is on the front of this group. It's just that little group, but not doing anything at the moment. I think he may have gone at the front there, or they're catching somebody from behind. It's very difficult to tell. It's so packed and so narrow at this point, but Pelazzotti is out by himself, having dropped Stefano Garzelli, who's now latched onto the back of this little group. I think it's Soler who's tried to go again at the front and get away. Well, once again, that'll play into the hands of De Luca if he can stay with him. But I think he's having to fight very, very hard. It flattens out just a little bit. Arroyo gets out of the saddle to try and get onto the wheel of a very, very good-looking Carlos Sastre at the moment. And Menchov looking even more deadly. He hasn't bothered at all on this climb. So the second Cat San Martino, after 251.5 kilometers, they just plunge down the other side. It's about 10 kilometers of winding little downhill, and then an interesting little kick at the end, Sean, because if they all come back together, it's going to favor the man who's still got zip in his legs.
Yes, well, certainly it's you know, on a pavé section, and it kicks up for about 400 meters, and you know, quite steep. Certainly, you know, it's going to be a leg breaker. You know, the descent first of all is going to be really contested. Going to go, you know, full downhill here, and you know that takes a bit of energy as well at the end of a very long stage, 262 kilometers. Certainly, we could see that being a launching pad. That last final kick up with 400 meters. The guys who've got the strength, who've got more energy, they could just pull away there in that final kilometers.
Over the top, then they go with the man who's been out for so long in the head of this race, Stefano Garzelli. Chapeau, sir, for staying there. Fighting towards the top to get over is Mick Rogers, Gilberto Simoni in that little group, Chris Horner as well. And they are going to have to descend quite quickly to try and get onto the back. There is the little prince, Damiano Cunego. Or is that Bruzigin who's going over? I think it might have been Bruzigin. How you can confuse the two, I don't know, being completely different size, but it was only a short shot of them. Fighting to, I think that was Francisco Maschiarelli coming over the top. He's been having a fantastic Giro d'Italia. Now, Pelazzotti is on the descent here. Pelazzotti's not a bad descender, but there are better descenders in the peloton, and they will be coming after him. They'll be hunting him down. Juan Maurizio Soler will not be one of them. Soler and Leipheimer, the second and third people over the top. But out of that little group, you'd expect De Luca, if he's still got some energy, to be able to try and close down this gap towards Pelazzotti now, and everybody else try and follow. Because I think out of that group, Sean, he's probably one of the better descenders.
Well, yes, certainly would be, of course, Leipheimer also a very good descender, but is he going to take the risk here? I think
not somehow.
We see Leipheimer, he's just following for the moment, and I think the time trial is in the back of his mind in 2 days' time, so he's not going to take big risk here. But certainly De Luca, you know, he's the one. I think he probably knows the descent as well. He surely has, you know, been out here to see this descent, and if you have done that, well, then a great advantage. And if you're a descender like De Luca, then you know you can really put the other big favours under pressure on this one.
Here we go then. It's Garzelli at the back. Well, if he hasn't got an awful lot of energy left, then it's going to be difficult for him to follow Pelazzotti right on the very edge. It's a very dangerous descent, this. Again, thank goodness it's dry. But then, of course, you would handle it differently if it was wet. So, no point going there, really. Garzelli, I think, is going to have to really concentrate here. He's been out the front for such a long time. Arroyo is a very good descender as well, actually.
And we can see Soler just on the rear end of that group of
Already.
group, and he was second over the top, of course, and you know why he went over the top in such a good position to just get in the front before the start of the descent. But he's not making a great job, and we can see him there. You know, he's going around the corners a little bit squarely. Yep,
threatening bit cornering from Juan Maurizio Soler. He's fantastic up them. He's not so good down them. He's a bit ungainly. But Pelazzotti is smooth, but not necessarily super fast. Here are the chasing riders. Well, it looks like Leipheimer is at the front of this little group here. It is Leipheimer, and Soler is tacked onto the back of him. Then Arroyo, then Basso, then Garzelli. I think he's been quite happy to follow here, and is giving Basso a fairly wide berth. Well, look at that. Just as we said, De Luca has shut down that gap. This shows how good he's. And Sastre has come down after him by the look of it. So that just goes to show. Here's Franco Pelazzotti. Here comes Danilo De Luca. Danger over for De Luca from Pelazzotti then. And has used his superior descending skills to get back to the junction with Franco Pelazzotti. Well, Leipheimer just keeping it under control, I think, Sean.
Yes, certainly under control, or maybe not pushing it too much and taking the big risk. And as I said, you know, he's thinking of a little bit further on this race. And you know, De Luca, he can be, you know, such a daredevil on the descent and majorly difficult to follow unless you're really a good descender, and you have to, you know, sometimes really take risks to just stay in his wheel.
Yes, if Soler is managing to follow him fairly easily, I would suggest that Leipheimer is not taking any risks at all. Pelazzotti with De Luca right behind him now, then Sastre, then Menchov, and then Arroyo, I think, has closed that gap down. So those are the cream of the crop in terms of descending. Then Leipheimer, Soler and Basso. Filippo Pozzato apparently has some technical problems back in the peloton, but out of it at the moment as far as this goes. And Garzelli at the back of this little group. Got every respect for Garzelli today. He's hung on in there when anybody's come past. He's just latched on and tried to work with them, or just tried to stay with the pace. So good man. Still wants to salvage something from today, as well as, we'll say salvage something, add something to his mountains classification journey, having gone over the top of the two big climbs of the day and pulled into the lead of that competition. That green jersey that's on his shoulders, he's ripped it off from Danilo Di Luca, who is trying to push hard now and open up a gap on some of his rivals. But the ones who are coming with him, look at this. This is the people we talked about, the dark horse people. It's Carlos Sastre, Denis Menchov and David Arroyo, who have made the junction with Pelazzotti and Di Luca. They are coming into form, these guys, Sean.
Well, certainly now they're starting to look at each other here also up front, and you know, who's going to do the pace setting. It'll be interesting to see if they can really pull together, but the advantage, I think, you know, it's very, very small here, and Leipheimer is going to use his time trialing abilities, as we can see, when he gets a little bit more straight road. And Basso looking about here, what do we do? You know, it's a difficult situation as well, because there's some other general classmen men have lost a little bit here. So you know, it's time tactic wise is going to be so important.
This is the pink jersey, the leader of the Giro d'Italia and super combative rider. They call him the killer, Danilo Di Luca, with Franco Pelazzotti in his wheel, who tried hard to get away. Well, he might be putting some time into people just above him, most noticeably Michael Rogers and Chris Horner, but he hasn't been able to shake anybody else. So Horner will be under pressure from Pelazzotti behind. There's no doubt about that. He only had a 10-second advantage over Pelazzotti. So Horner in 8th overall will slip down tonight if it continues like this. Michael Rogers is the one who stands to lose most here, Sean, because 3rd overall in general classification and dropped on that climb.
Yes, he looked to be in trouble, and now, of course, you know, we see the group, which is Basso, Leipheimer. They are going to get onto this group, I would think, of leaders of De Luca, and it's going to be difficult for Rogers, because if you find yourself back there in a group of 3 or 4 riders, certainly, you know, impossible to close it down. Also, Lukvist, who we haven't seen here, he's the other big loser, of course, today.
Big names. This is a big shake-up then, or this is a shake-out, shall we say, of people who are liable to be suffering over the next week. Di Luca showing the strong bench. Di Luca, Pelazzotti, Menchov and Sastre just hanging. He's got about 2 or 3 bike lengths to try and fight back, and David Arroyo is having trouble just hanging on in this little dig towards the end now. Menchov digging in as well. Sastre having to call on all his reserves, but Di Luca is the one who's giving it the big welly now. He's trying to push past, but Menchov looks as though he's in trouble. Menchov looking as though he's coming to the end of any zip in his legs. Di Luca's going for it, and it's Sastre who's going after him. Carlos Sastre of the Cervelo test team, the 2008 winner of the Tour de France on Alpe d'Huez. He is a pure climber, but he's become so much more of an all-rounder in the last few years. Little by little by little, he's got better over many, many years. And this is a little bit further down. Leipheimer, Basso, Garzelli. Leipheimer doesn't look too comfortable either. with 3 kilometers to go. De Luca is trying to stamp his authority on this. Sastre, the only man who can go with him.
Yes, and as you can see, they put down a new cover of asphalt there because it was small cobblestones, I believe. So it's making it a little bit easier, but certainly De Luca, you know, when you see Menchoff in trouble here, and also Leipheimer, because he's made the effort, of course, and you're going to pay the price if you have to make an effort to try and bridge the gap. And it's just, you know, it's a time trial between a lot of the big favourites at the moment.
It certainly is. This is really interesting stuff on the stage. With the longest stage of the Giro d'Italia, 262 kilometers, is Danilo De Luca, who's showing he's the man in form at the moment. Is he going to have a bad day at any point during this Giro d'Italia? That's what it's about. He knows he's the strongest here today now. Look at the way he cornered there. He knows he's got it not in so much in the bag, but he knows he's putting the boot into all his major rivals here.
And of course, you know that if you're a good descender and you can drop the good climbers, the best climbers in the world on the climb, well then they, you know, they're in difficulty, and that gives you an extra boost as well, because you know, as a good descender, you know they're tired, and you know, you immediately say to yourself, well, they're not going to close down on me here, they're going to lose time if anything.
They are going to lose time as well to Danilo De Luca. There's no doubt about that. Pelazzotti was trying to stick with him for a long time, but he's a much better rider in these sort of conditions. Is Danilo De Luca. Just look at him. This is real battling stuff by Danilo De Luca. He earned that sobriquet, the killer, earlier on in his career, and now the LPR rider who's got massive hopes for this LPR team. He wants to take the team on from the Giro d'Italia if he wins again, and take it to the Tour de France maybe next year with a bigger budget. Looking at the way it's perceived, it's been looked at as a little haven for people in some respects, but he says no, it's a proper bike team. 2 kilometers to go then for the following riders, including Rogers here by the look of it, who's trying to power on and be more like a time trialist at this particular point. Claw some time back. He was 44 seconds down on De Luca, but it's not that he's got to worry about. It's Menchoff, it's Basso, it's Sastre, and Horner losing out as well today. Here is De Luca all out by himself. This is a real champion's ride.
Yes, it certainly is a big performance from De Luca, and of course, you know, he's going to take time out of the big men here, and also the bonifications, which he's going to take, you know, a bit. So certainly, with view of the time trial in 2 days' time, he needs to do that because he knows that he's going to lose time to some of the other big favourites.
Danilo De Luca looking hard behind him to see if anybody can follow him, but it's Pelazzotti, Menchoff and Sastre. Sastre looking the better on the climbs, but they managed to get it back together as a trio to try and do something about De Luca, but nobody's going to catch Danilo De Luca today. The winner of the Giro back in 2007, with these 3 men trying to bear down on him. He's trying to get as much time as possible before the time trial. There's a gap of about 4 or 5 seconds. That's all that De Luca's going to need, I think, if he keeps on at this pace. Well, we had this ride to celebrate the win of Fausto Coppi back in 1949 over from Cuneo to Pinerolo. A real champions ride then, and it looks like it's going to be another champions ride 60 years down the line for Danilo De Luca. Already a winner of the Giro d'Italia. The pink jersey wins on the most prestigious day in the Giro d'Italia of 2009, the centenary event, over the line in the pink jersey. He knows he was the strongest today. And a clenched fist salute. Not over-exuberant, just enough to say, I am the man today. Franco Pelazzotti comes over second. He gets bonus seconds, as does Carlos Sastre. Here comes David Arroyo, fighting to try and maintain that 5th spot. He's just about going to do it. Soler's going to come in 6th by the look of it. Soler, Basso, Leipheimer's 8th. It looks like Horner may have got back onto that group at the back. No, it's Lance Armstrong who's got into the group at the back. Arriving with Simoni in that group. Well, Horner looking like the bigger loser today. And Michael Rogers just about managed to fight to get back on. This a good ride by Rogers. Good descent.
Yes, well, certainly a good climb first of all, because you had to be able to do it on that, the final climb of the day. And if you have got it in your legs, and then you have to, a little bit of a gap there, of course. And everybody was fighting on the descent, like there was groups there, and even to stay in the wheel, if you were in a small group, you still had to fight. If you were certainly, for the likes of Pelazzotti, Menchoff, they really had to fight even to stay with, the guys they were with. And what a ride by De Luca. He knew that on the climb. He gave a few digs in the earlier on, and I think he was just feeling the water really, and a great victory with the races of Giro and to win the stage of today. A magnificent performance.
Here comes Damiano Cunego, still fighting into Pinerolo. I think Lukvist is coming over the line now. 29 seconds down were Armstrong and Simoni from Danilo Di Luca. Well, what a finish to today. If you wanted a fitting day of racing as your big day, that was a pretty good one. Garzelli and then Di Luca. As Vasily Kirienka comes over the line, he always looks the same. He always looks slightly puzzled, whatever he's doing, Vasily Kirienka. He never quite knows where he is and what he's doing, I think. It's he's got that look about him, but a masterful ride by De Luca in the end. Timed it perfectly. He knew exactly what he had to do, Sean, and went out and did it.
Yes, certainly went out and did the job brilliantly. And when you've got the legs and you feel good, and you can see that, and you can find it out pretty quickly when you give a few accelerations on that final climb of the day. De Luca he knew, I think, that he could do damage today and take some very valuable time out of the other riders. And the bonification, of course, which he takes also here, which is 20 seconds at the finish. And when you see the time of today's stage, 6.5 hours, it's a long day, and it's a day that I think there's going to be a lot of people paying the price maybe as we go on in this race, or this long days we've had.
Great finish by Garzelli, look at that. Up in the top 15, wonderful stuff. Danilo Di Luca, though, shows that he is on super form. Well, I wonder, there's so many riders who can't translate this to the Tour de France. I mean, he's not likely to, because he's not going to be there. But certainly showing that he is looking like another champion today. Fighting so hard on the longest stage of the Giro d'Italia. Well, fantastic performance by Menchoff and Sastre as well, Sean. It looks, and in fact, Armstrong coming back as well. There's 29 seconds from De Luca, but even so, coming to the back of that group, they're coming into form.
Yes. Certainly Sastre coming into form, because he's been coming all the time, but certainly I was expecting him maybe to pay the price in some of the stages we've had already, and today once again very impressive. And he's moving up gradually up the classement. Of course, Rogers, he will move into second place. Menchoff will move ahead of Leipheimer, of course, but nothing major here for the moment. But certainly some of the big favourites, the big two riders showing form, and I suppose Sastre is the one who certainly surprising me. I did not expect to be in this form at this moment so early in the race.
De Luca then holds on to the pink jersey. Denis Menchoff moves into second spot from fifth. Rogers into third. Leipheimer stays in fourth spot. Lukvist, the big loser today. But a win for Danilo Di Luca. In the Queen stage of the Giro d'Italia, after 60 years after Fausto Coppi, it's Di Luca. Jens Vogt, just about to do the, he's been one of the people picked at random to do the testing. And in he goes. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll come back. I want to discuss a little bit about the time trial, which is imminent, and it could see Michael Rogers in pink. This then was the moment when Danilo Di Luca showed that he really is going to be the man to beat in this year's Giro d'Italia, taking it by the scruff of the neck on the San Martino climb. The last climb of the day, and descending like a stone, he caught Franco Pelazzotti and took the victory into Pinerolo today on the 60 years after Fausto Coppi won from Cuneo to Pinerolo. This was the longest stage in this year's Giro d'Italia, 262 kilometers. And the 1997 winner of the Giro showing he is going to be the man to have to try and shed in the mountains over the next week or so. Carlos Sastre and Denis Menchov looking ominously as though they're coming into form. Tomorrow, a pretty flat day, but the man to be, well, what's going to really come under pressure for Danilo Di Luca is 2 days' time on Thursday, Sean. It is the time trial. Well, we saw a little bit of Johan Brunel and the Astana bus earlier today, the team briefing. And later on this evening, we'll have Planet Armstrong at 1945, where you can see the full extent that we got of this exclusive access to the Astana bus this morning. 1945 for the full package here on Eurosport. Sean, very briefly, we haven't got much time. Time trial in a couple of days' time. Thursday, Michael Rogers, could he be in pink?
Yes, well, Saturday, 60 kilometres, and it's a very difficult time trial. That's where I would be a little bit concerned for Rogers. It's not the big flat straight roads. Very, very difficult, up 2 hills actually, and very, very technical. And the talk is a lot of people talking about using normal bikes, and that tells you immediately it's very, very technical. Very
technical indeed. It won't be that bad then for Carlos Sastre and Denis Menchov as the 2 big hills. This is tomorrow then. Torino to Aranzano, stage 11 of the Giro d'Italia. It's pretty flat with just a little lump towards the end. Maybe another day for Colombia, because LPR must be thinking now, well, what are we going to do? Do we leave Pataki to his own devices? Because we're going to need all our men for Di Luca a little later on. Who knows? Colombia High Road, they may be in that position in a week, and in 3 or 4 days' time, should I say, if Rogers takes over the pink at the time trial. Armstrong looking like he's coming back into form. Sastre and Menchov into form. From Sean and I, bye for now.